Good morning and welcome to Ag Talk and Raw, where I talk about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. So I haven't done one of these in a while, simple, just because I'm busy most of the time. Actually, I think I did one about a week ago. But anyway, there was a subject that was brought up recently that I remember from about 20, 30 years ago. So it'll kind of put into perspective what's going on now in the climate change and what farmers can do to appease the politicians, because those assholes don't know what they're talking about. Most of the time, they just spew what they've been told to talk about. But this subject that I'm going to talk about is actually carbon storage. And carbon storage really isn't carbon storage per se. It's utilizing carbon, CO2 carbon. So, as you know, or maybe you don't know if you're a non-human being, we are carbon-based life forms. We need carbon. We take in oxygen. We exhale carbon dioxide, right? CO2, carbon dioxide. So the world wants to go to electric, right? They want to go to electric. Electric is just the transference from energy from the sun, carbon, energy from the sun to something, electricity, to electricity. There are many ways that you can do this. You can burn coal, you can burn oil, you can burn wood to make steam to produce electricity. That solar transference from sun radiation to electricity, or even wind. Water is more than likely the most efficient way because rain falls, doesn't cost you anything, just falls. You build the dam can be there for 100 years. We're closing in. The Hoover Dam's been there since the 1930s. So I believe the 1930s, pretty sure. Glen Canyon dams and all those dams that are there. Yes, it is an environmental disaster when they build these dams because the wildlife that, fish, the migratory fish that used to go up those rivers can no longer go up those rivers, but there's other rivers that they can go up. But it impacts them quite negatively. So no matter what we do as human beings, we're going to screw up the environment, because that's what we do. We divide, we conquer, we destroy. That's just the nature of the human being. And soil is no different. Soil is no different. We take the shortcut to higher yield by destroying the structure of the soil and then transferring what we destroyed into a commercial product, i.e. fertilizers and things like that. By destroying that biology, we actually limit the availability of commercial fertilizers as well. And as your organic matter depletes in the soil, yes, depletes, it is no longer as organic as it used to be. Even you fellas out in the Midwest that are, pumping in anhydrous and whatever else you can to make it break down those mineralize the nutrients that are in your soil by eating the organic matter. Eventually, you will find out that that organic matter was much more important than that super high yield. Now, call me an asshole if you want. It's fine. A little education and understanding into what I'm talking about would go a very, very long way. It's like I said, human beings divide and conquer. But I'm going to go back to this carbon storage thing. So about 25, 30 years ago, maybe even 35 years ago, because I'm now 51, it's probably been 35 years ago, early 90s. So let's just say 30, 35 years ago, late 80s, early 90s. As a matter of fact, it probably was the late 80s. There was a push for farmers to go no-till. Really a big push to go no-till. And a lot of the folks out in the Midwest we're still moldboard plowing everything. Just go turn it under, and they would go with 2 or 3 plows or however many they had, and they would go and they would plow their 400 or 500 acres that they were farming, because those were, pretty good size farms for back in the late 80s, early 90s. The biggest tractor was 200 plus horsepower. Even the articulated ones very rarely reached 400. And those were prairie machines anyway. But you take these plows and you roll that under. Good morning, William. You roll that under, you oxygenate the soil, which excites the biology in the soil, and the biology in the soil eats the carbon right up. Just eats it up. Eats the organic matter. It allows for water infiltration into that plow depth. Not the plow smear, or that plow pan that you've created with your plow. Sealing off what goes below. Waiting for the roots to penetrate that, if they do. There's just a lot of things that go on with that. But there was a program that our government was going to implement, and they did implement it. They just didn't give it to farmers. But they were talking about carbon credit. Okay, so and they wanted to give farmers carbon credit, at least certain politicians. I'm not sure which ones they were, because let's face it, it was 35 years ago. So they came up with this idea of carbon credit, and you would sign up at the FSA or the ASCS office. That's what they called it before it became the Farm Service Agency, but the ASCS office. You would sign up for these carbon credits, and every year that you didn't plow or work the soil, you just no-tilled, that they would give you like a half of a credit per acre, or a credit and a half per acre, which could be traded on the open market. And I remember reading about this and saying, holy shit, that is going to put an awful lot of pressure on the farmers that are left, because the bigger guys are going to want to gobble up as much ground as they can and go full no-till, because they're going to be getting the equivalent. And I believe at that time, I'm not 100% sure, I can't remember, but I believe it was like $60 a credit. I might be wrong. It could be $16. I know there was a 6 in it somewhere. It was either $16 or $60 per credit. And you would get these carbon credits by not plowing. So, which was a great incentive to go into no-till farming. The problem was that these people that were implementing this, they did not understand that simply no-tilling does not really store the carbon or utilize it. It'll put it in the ground, but then it is
Hey,
you
Dad,
have to have. Yes, William.
I'm packing up
Where are you going?
to the Philippines.
Oh, he's going to the Philippines. Okay, I'll see you when you get back. Anyway, just simply no-tilling alone, yes, you're going to have a reduced yield by simply no-tilling alone. That's when Roundup really hit the scene as a major herbicide to burn down and control, for weed control. They had Roundup Ready soybeans were new in the 90s. Roundup Ready corn a few years later. Liberty Link came in. That's been, 20 years or more, 25 years ago now that Liberty Link came in. The makers of Roundup, Monsanto, really did not like the Aventis product. I think it was Aventis product of Liberty Link, so they kind of fought it, and then eventually now we have double stack stuff. So what farmers were doing, in no-till was just the first step in healing the soil, which was minimal disturbance of the upper layer. But they were burning everything down. And I've been to the South, North Carolina, where if there's a blade of grass growing on that farm, they have to kill everything. They go in and they just burn it down. No blades of grass, no dandelions, nothing. Everything is barren soil. And that's the way they farm, because I'd hate to say it, they just, not for a lack of better words, just ignorance. They don't understand that the biology in the soil needs that green growing roots. And 35 years ago, the people that wanted to implement these carbon credits did not understand anything about cover crops. Now, that's about the time that Gabe Brown started doing regenerative agriculture. What the heck is the other guy's name? He was just killed in a car accident. David Brandt. David Brandt had been doing regenerative agriculture for 20 years at that point. Yeah, 20 years at that point. There's a few others that have been doing regenerative ag on a smaller scale, but these guys were, they were doing pretty well and healing the soil that had been so viciously destroyed by the plow. So we could fast forward it a little bit, but we're going to still go back to 30, 35 years ago when this carbon credit thing was conceived. So I was all for it. I'm like, we're already doing a lot of no-till. We were. No-till corn. No-till soybeans, I did a little bit of. I didn't have a no-till drill. Didn't have the money to get one. So it was after corn, we would go in with the disc and disc it twice, and then just disc it. We didn't chisel plow it, but we would disc the corn stalks down twice, and then put the soybeans in, and they seemed to do well on the corn stalks that were breaking down and regenerating the nutrients back for the soybeans. So that worked really pretty well for us for several years until the deer population got insane. So the carbon credit never came to fruition for farmers. It just wasn't going to happen. It was something I think that they pushed for farmers, then realized that, if you give them a credit or a credit and a half or even a half a credit per acre, they're going to start making money. And truly, they will be storing carbon, right? So they get this thing all together, put it all together. We're going to do carbon credits. We're going to do carbon storage. We're going to be selling carbon on the open market. So it's like, how do you sell carbon credits? I mean, if you're actually storing carbon, I get it. You can buy it, but who's going to buy carbon credit? So a little more research goes on my part and other farmers and meetings that we had gone to years ago, that these carbon credits, you stored the carbon, and then the dirty polluting companies like Monsanto, and anybody that was generating electricity with coal or fuel oil or natural gas, they had to purchase carbon credit. So they create the carbon into the atmosphere, automobiles, stuff like that. That's carbon monoxide, but it is carbon in all. Carbon is good. It's necessary in our lives. Without it, trees die, plants die, animals die, we die. There's no way that you can have a forest of trees without carbon dioxide. It just doesn't happen. Jungles in South America, they die. All life on planet dies without carbon dioxide. Now, if you say that to a lib that is running around saying, oh my God, the carbon's killing me. We're all going to die because of carbon. That's totally false. And if you believe that carbon is killing you, you are really uneducated. I don't care if you got a Harvard degree or a Stanford degree or an Oxford degree. Carbon is not killing you. Carbon is actually causing plant growth. Like, the more carbon in our air means that our plants are healthier. Our corn crops can grow more vigorously. Our soybeans, our wheat, our forests, our anything. If you go back, way back, like millions of years, to the dinosaur age, carbon levels were like 1.2% of the atmosphere, right? Or 0.12. 0.12% of the atmosphere, I think it was. 0.12% of the atmosphere. 0.12% of the atmosphere. So everything was growing and thriving and living like, wow, we have all this carbon we can convert to oxygen. Right? Yeah, and it did. And it worked out that way. Didn't mean the oxygen levels were lower, just meant that the carbon levels were higher. Carbon dioxide levels were higher. Yeah, so there you go. The carbon dioxide levels is 0.004%. 0.04%. 0.04% of our atmosphere. In the summertime, it can drop to 0.035%. Right? It can drop. In the summertime here, it can drop to 0.035. But everybody runs on the 0.4%. 0.04% of our atmosphere is carbon dioxide. 0.04 of anything is really nominal in our atmosphere. It isn't going to kill us. It isn't going to help us. It isn't going to hurt us. It's there. The rise in carbon dioxide has not occurred. It's like 0.003% in 150 years of human burning of coal, diesel, whatever, oil, bunker oil, whatever you're talking about. So whenever you hear a politician talk about climate change, stand up in the crowd and say, what percentage of our atmosphere is carbon dioxide? I guarantee you they don't know, because they're that stupid. They will stand on their soapbox and they will scream, carbon dioxide is going to kill us all, and it's destroying our planet, and we're all going to die. But they don't really know the percentage. I watched a congressional hearing or Senate hearing, and they asked the leading climate change activist, that very question. The climate change activist, or the leading climate scientist, asked the congressman or senator what he thought the percent of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was. He says, well, it's got to be somewhere between 30 and 50% carbon dioxide. And the look on all of their faces, the entire panel that was conducting this hearing, were shocked when he says it's 0.04%. They're like, what? How could this be? That can't be. How much has it risen in the last 10 years? Unmeasurable. It has risen an unmeasurable amount. You got to go to school, dude. School. I got to go pick corn. It has risen an unmeasurable amount. So back to the carbon credits. So once they get all these carbon credit stuff done, it's like, okay, we're going to do carbon credit. We've created it. It is, took billions of dollars or millions of dollars to put the law into order and get it set up that they can be traded on the stock market and everything. And then they forgot about the farmer. Like, fuck that. We're not going to give the farmer any money. Forget it. It's not going to happen. What can we do? Well, we can still do this carbon credit thing. We can just make green energy, what they call green energy, a carbon positive industry. Solar panels and wind, not water. They don't do water because water, as far as I know, they don't do water. So for every windmill that they built in Iowa, never mind the 1,000 yards of concrete that it took to put that base in and how much fuel it took to refine the cement, to make the cement and refine that concrete or that cement. Never mind the steel that they had to mine the ore, refine the ore, melt the ore, make steel from the ore, and never mind the carbon fiber that they had to manufacture from oil and other things around this planet, all the and all that stuff. Never mind the copper and the aluminum and all that other stuff that they
Look.
put into there. Yeah, I see. You better put that back. Mommy got that for you. Better put it back. You got to go to school. Never mind all of that stuff and what carbon footprint it took to build those wind turbines, or never mind the aluminum for the solar panels and the carbon and the whatever metals and plastic that it took to build those solar panels, the steel to put the poles in the ground and the aluminum fixtures and all that stuff. Never mind all that crap. We will give those people carbon credit. So when you build a solar field, it's 1.5 carbon credits per acre of solar. Maybe it's per 110 square yards or something. Anyways, whatever it is, we will give you X number of carbon credit. That's where the carbon credits are created, through wind and solar. And then they force the coal company to buy those carbon credits so that they can continue to put sulfur, we need that, by the way, and whatever carbon dioxide and soot into the atmosphere. Nobody wants soot, okay? Soot is, even though soot is carbon, but that soot, nobody wants to breathe the soot. Trust me, it's not healthy for you at all. So I can understand scrubbers in these coal-fired plants and stuff. What I don't understand is that they're creating carbon credit using probably the most polluting sources on this planet to create a carbon credit, right? When the simple fact is, as farmers, no tilling, cover cropping, planting green, and I'm not saying everybody should do this. This is just my personal choice, but this is the way to actually and factually store carbon into our soils. It doesn't even store it. Carbon is food for the biology. That's what it is. It's food for biology, food for the fungus, food for the microbes in the soil. All the biology in the soil takes carbon. When you plow the ground, you actually get a carbon release, because what happens is the biology just eats it all up, and then they die, decay, and gas off into the atmosphere. You're actually putting carbon back into the atmosphere by doing that. Carbon capture is done through root exudates. Oh, somebody is not happy. Carbon capture is done through root exudates from trees, crops, grass, all that other fun stuff. That's what it is. Biology is fed through the atmosphere, the carbon out of the atmosphere. Animals, mob grazing. Farting cows. Remember AOC that knows nothing about anything? She was just a bartender that won a position of power, and spews stupidity every day of her life, expecting people to believe it. And there are a certain amount of people that do believe her and feel that she is an expert in the field of farting cows, which she has no clue. So what do you want? It's like, educate yourself. Cow eats grass. Cow poops grass back onto the soil. Nutrients, mineralized through the biology. Birds come, peck through that manure, spreading out the mineralized waste to be reused by said plants. Methane. How much methane do people produce versus cattle? And the methane that people produce, go down through Philadelphia at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch them burn it off. Where's that going? That carbon, open flames, out the tops. Anyway, whatever. That's that. So here you are. Farmers get left out of the carbon credit programs, even though 35 years ago, that's what it was designed for farmers to basically store carbon or utilize carbon to grow healthier crops. They didn't really talk about cover cropping at all at that time. It was just no-till, carbon storage, farmer gets credit. Farmer sells credits when he needs money. Farmer can buy whatever, new tractors, whatever he needs, seed, to do it again, year after year after year after year. Smarter move. Solar panels get it. Wind turbines get it. Why do they get it? They get it because there's money. Farmers don't lobby for politicians to get into office. They just don't. There's no money left from a farmer to lobby into it. And I'm going to talk 20 years ago now. 20 years ago when, Jesus, almost been when, well, yeah, 20 years ago, George Bush, George W. Yeah, George W., second George Bush to be president of the United States, pushed for ethanol and fuel. Excellent. Let's get ethanol and fuel. Oil companies lobbied against that to the point where John Stossel stood up and made basically a mini movie on how ethanol is not a product that is saving the planet. You know, it's not a fuel that is sustainable. Well, it is sustainable. We grow it every year, right? We're growing corn every year. John Stossel made it look like there was, when you took a bushel of corn to the ethanol plant, that the corn was then gone. You took that out of starving babies in Africa's mouths. And yes, ethanol can be detrimental on carburetors. Injection systems, no. But carburetors, yes. Nobody uses carburetors hardly anymore. They just don't. Who does? Since 2000, I don't think there's even a carbureted motorcycle produced. Everything's fuel injected. It does collect water. It does. It does pull water and alcohol. It's alcohol, so it will absorb water. But it makes it a burnable form. Doesn't run quite as good. Do you get the gas mileage that you normally would? No, you probably don't. I like burning it though because it burns clean. So the illusion that when you took a bushel of corn and made ethanol out of it, they had the general public thinking that corn was gone. You're starving kids in Africa now, and around the world, these third world countries are all going to die because these mean old American farmers push to have ethanol put in the gasoline and soy oil put into diesel fuel. Holy shit, they're all going to die, which is an absolute lie. There's distillery grains that are left, DDG, dried distillery grains, and what was the other one? There's like dried distillery grains and gluten meal, corn gluten meal. So these distillery grains, gluten meal, whatever the heck they have, that is what's left. So what do you do with it? There's a lot of things you can do with it. One is you could actually pelletize it and make fuel, or you could pelletize it and feed it to animals, or you could just mix it into feed, or you can sell it to China so that the fish have something to eat and the pigs and the cows have something to eat in China so that they can feed their people. So the illusion that it was all gone, it was just an illusion and a talking point to get it off the market. The automobile manufacturing companies, they actually made cars that were E85 compliant, 85% ethanol. I had one. When I ran E85, yeah, your gas mileage went down, but it cost you a third less for the fuel. And you got about the same gas, about the same mileage. It was a little better, cost less to buy it. The mileage went down, but you went further for your dollar. How's that sound? You went further for your dollar. And those of you that do remember this stuff, I think they stopped making those in about 2016. Donald Trump didn't really help the ethanol businesses at all. They still make ethanol for export, though. There's a huge ethanol export. They got that MTBE stuff out of the gasoline and replaced it with ethanol. And in the wintertime, people complain because, oh my God, but they don't have water in their fuel at all because it just goes right on through. So anyways, with that being said, every time that the politicians come out with something for a farmer, the farmer is always at the forefront. Hey, let's do this. It'll help the farmers. And then some industrialist over here will say, hey, you know what? Farmers ain't it. Whatever. Let's do it this way. and they are the polluters. The solar panel companies are the polluters. The wind turbine people, they're the polluters. The electric car manufacturers are the polluters. It takes more to produce an electric car to go less miles, last less time on the road than it does a regular gasoline powered engine. So with that being said, I'm going to just let you guys crucify me in the comment section below. Have a nice day.